Now don't be fooled by some of the people who tell you that pruning roses is difficult and there's some sort of mystery to it. Rose pruning is really easy. Roses are one of the toughest plants around, and if you cut in the wrong place, then they'll soon take care of that themselves and they'll grow in the season regardless of what you do to them. There's two reasons for pruning roses. One is to promote better flowering in the next season, and the other one is to improve the health of the rose bush itself. You'll need a pair of sharp secateurs, and you'll probably need a pair of loppers for the bigger branches down at the bottom. Anything that's too tough to get through with a pair of secateurs, just use loppers. And if you have any branches that are crossing over and are hard to get at, we have some great little pruning saws these days. They're easy to get at for the crossing branches. It's very important to wear leather gloves, because no matter how hard you try, you will always end up catching your hand on some of the thorns. And if you want to protect your arms as well as your hands, use a pair of these long-sleeved pruning gloves. The first thing we'll do is to take out all the thin and wispy stems, because they're never going to be strong enough to produce good flowering. And we will also take out any of the dead pieces on the plant. Okay, we're going to get going into taking off all the thin wispy branches, and we'll also take out any dead stuff. This stem here has got a big dead patch right there, so we'll take it right down to there for now. We're not worrying about reducing the height itself at the moment. We're really just getting out all the thin stuff, so I'll just carry on with that. Okay, so we've taken out all the thin and scrappy little bits and pieces. Now we're going to reduce the height of the whole bush. And as I said before, that's mainly to stop it getting too tall in the next season. And it also means the plant will be more vigorous, because when it's cut back, it draws on its reserves and sends out very strong new growth. What we want to do is to keep the center of the plant reasonably open when we get the height down. And we also want to make sure that the new growth comes from the right place. The new growth will always come, the strongest growth will come from the top bud that you leave when you're doing your cutting back. So if you cut to an outside bud, the new growth will go out that way. If the top bud that you leave behind is on the inside, it will grow into the middle. You don't want that, because you'll end up with a whole lot of crossed branches in the middle of the plant. And that will definitely cut back on the flowering. So we cut to a top bud. If you can't find a bud, just go to one of the little nodules on the stem, and there'll be a little bump there, and that will actually turn into a bud. Some people worry about the fact that they've got a lot of leaves still on their rose bushes when they go to prune them. It doesn't make any difference at all, just cut it back anyhow. The place to cut is where you find a group of 5 leaves facing outwards, and you cut about 2 centimeters above that outward facing group of leaves. That way the new growth goes out instead of in. If you cut further up where there are only 3 leaves, that's weaker wood up there and you won't get such strong growth. Always go down to 5 leaves on the outside. And the same thing applies in the summer when you're deadheading your roses. Don't just take off the very top of the plant. Always go down to 5 outward facing leaves, and you'll get quick regrowth from that and more flowering. So right now we're going to get the height of this down by about 1/3. I'll start with the stem on the outside here. There is no bud, but there's a very good nodule on the outside of the stem, and if I cut about 2 centimeters above there, sometimes you won't even find a bud or a little nodule to cut above, but you will always find on the stems rings at regular intervals, and you can cut above one of those, because the moment you cut there, that will stimulate the plant to send out growth from that area. And I've got a ring just by my little finger here, and I'll be cutting above that, and that will definitely turn into a nodule and then into a bud and new growth. So at the moment I'm just going around now, and I'm taking the height down and ending up with a really simplified plant. We've got a very good outside bud right here. You can see the bud facing that away, and that's where the new growth will go. We've got another one over here, and I don't think we've got a bud on here. but we have got a little ring around the stem. We'll cut on that point. There's another outward facing bud just down here. That's been new growth towards the end of the season. You can see by the different colour of the stem. So now we've ended up with something that's pretty simplified. There's one more branch over here that needs cutting, and I'll cut here just above one of the rings. This one in here is crossing over, which is not ideal, but remember, when you're pruning roses, you never get to the perfect situation. There's always something crossing or not quite perfect. You just compromise and decide, do I take that right out or do I leave it? I think in this case we'll actually take that right out because of the crossing over. So I'll take it off at the base. That one there, I'll probably go down just a little bit more because there's a good bud there. This one is still a little bit tall. There's a bud just forming there. I'll cut above that. And that's what we want at the end. Something that's open in the middle, simple. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 good strong stems, and they will all produce flowering pretty quickly in the spring. If you ever get a shoot that comes up from under the grafted area, take that right off. That is the rootstock coming away, and it will grow to about 6 feet tall, and it will have probably one tiny flower on it. The last job that we will do is to give the base of the plant, or the crown as it's called. This is where it was originally grafted. The flowering stock was grafted onto the rootstock. We'll give that a scrub with a wire brush, because when you stimulate that crown there, you will get what they call basal shoots. And basal shoots come right from the bottom here, and they come straight up strongly, and they have really good flowering potential. So if you scrub this to stimulate that growth, that will improve your flowering. So that just about tidies up the rose pruning. Just remember that it is simple. Roses grow easily. If you cut in the wrong place, new growth will come out anyway, and you can rectify it as the season goes on. So good luck with that, and enjoy your roses. They're one of the best plants for flowering because they go on for about 5 months of the year. Many of them are scented, and they're all good for picking.